Welcome back, you guys, to Conversations in the Cockpit. Today I have with me Matt. He is a Part 141 student. So today we're going to be talking about the Part 141 versus Part 61 flight schools. They're basically two different tracks that you can take to get your ratings. So why did you choose a Part 141 school instead of going Part 61?
Yeah, so my two main reasons for choosing a Part 141 school was first off my age. I was graduating high school. I had the opportunity to continue my education through college in aviation, which was a really exciting opportunity. 141 gave me a more traditional college path to do that with, and that came with the added bonus of that restricted ATP with 1,000-hour mins. And, when I go to the airlines one day, which is my goal, being able to show a degree in flight, which is always appreciated.
So would you say that the structure and scheduling of a Part 141 school was a big factor in your decision?
Personally, it was not the biggest factor in my decision, but I do really appreciate some other benefits. One being we have a really vast fleet. We have almost 30 airplanes. So yeah, we have really amazing maintenance on base, which is great because if we have a question about our airplanes, if we want to learn more about a system, we can just taxi over, get clarification. And I'd say that was a bigger part of my decision, was having kind of like a home base with everything. I have all my classrooms on site, our airport's on campus, and that was a huge benefit of that 141 style program.
Yeah, like I heard you say something about like you get to tour like dispatcher facilities, and, like ask some questions and everything like that, which we have Regan in the back and Kate too. If you remember Regan from the dispatcher episode and Kate from the 19-year-old CFII episode.
Oh yeah.
They're joining us. We got a full cockpit today. So yeah, you got to tour like dispatcher facilities?
Yeah, so we've gotten to go through my school and my connections with Alpha ACE, which is the Airline Pilots Association Aviation Collegiate Education Club. Great program for young pilots, especially in Part 141 programs. We've gone to O'Hare, we've gone through all of like United's headquarters, American maintenance, lots of great tours that really expose you to parts of the industry you don't normally get to see through like Part 61 flight training.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, I think the most we get in Part 61 is like, you have the A&P mechanic on the field that is like free for you to ask any questions if you're not too scared to go in and talk to them. And then also like the tower controllers are usually pretty cool. So how does a typical week of training look for you under Part 141?
So yeah, during our semester, because again it's a college program, we're assigned a flight block. Typically that looks like 2 days a week for flight, 1 day a week for ground. They're about 2 days apart. So for example, my last was Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday from 3 to 5.
Okay, that's not so bad.
Yeah, they're 2-hour blocks. We show up 15 minutes early for briefing and then 15 minutes in for debrief. And then while you're doing that, obviously the next students with your airplane that you just dropped off, they're pre-flighting it, the CFIs rotate out. So using those 2 days of flight training, you're going up, you're doing those lessons we talked about in that 141 structure. And then the ground day you can go on what's called ops request, which means basically you go out, if there's extra airplanes, you can do another flight lesson. Or if you need to catch up on sim or ground, you can utilize those resources on your ground day.
Nice. Yeah, I love it when flight schools allow you to like use the sim whenever you want to. It helps out a ton. So do you feel like the syllabus helps you stay accountable, or does it ever just feel like too rigid?
Yeah, so I'd say it's a little of both. The syllabus, obviously, another benefit of that 141 environment is it can be at an accelerated pace. So that can be awesome. When you're feeling great, you're flying well, and things come naturally, that syllabus is fantastic because it lets you move through lessons quicker. But it can definitely start to feel pretty rigid if you have a lesson you struggle with, because now instead of just repeating one thing or being able to go on and practice what you feel like you might be missing, you're stuck to more of a lesson structure that maybe isn't entirely beneficial every time.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I liked about the Part 61 is like if I ever got stuck on something, like we would have more time to work on it, and like the instructor would carry the lesson plan to work on that one specific thing that I was having difficulty around. So that's why I liked Part 61, but we'll get into that 141 versus 61 in a minute.
Yeah.
So how fast are most students progressing? And then I don't know if you want to answer that question.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so most of the students are on a 4-year course. What that means is if you're approved for the aviation flight technology program, we have a waitlist section, but I was a part of the direct program, so I want to speak on that because I know it more comfortably. Basically, you walk in, week 1, week 2, you start flying. That's kind of rare for these college programs. Sometimes they make you wait a year or two. But
okay.
Ideally,
is that because they want you to do more of the ground first?
Exactly. They try to, they all have their different reasons, but they want kids out, getting their written done, getting their ground school done, and coming in with more knowledge. Lewis has said, we're a Lasallian institution. It's a form of Catholic education, but one of the things they teach is doing to learn. So more or less, they believe a huge part of understanding the airplane is flying the airplane. So by taking that ground school, doing it, getting your written done, and flying the airplane all at the same time, they believe it leads to better holistic pilot training, which I would agree with personally.
Have you flown with the same instructor the whole time? And then how much flexibility do you have in being able to choose your own instructor?
Yeah, so I've flown with 2 instructors mainly now. You bounce around occasionally, like if somebody gets sick or someone goes on vacation. I'd say that's pretty standard at most places with multiple CFIs. There is a degree of flexibility if needed, but they really encourage you to try to stick with and learn with an instructor. Again, under that 141 format, one of the ideas is since you're all doing the same lessons, all the CFIs are capable and qualified. That's why we have a rating system.
Yeah.
And therefore, doing your lessons, it should be possible that anyone can execute all the lessons the same. Now, if something really isn't clicking, it is possible to switch, but I'd say that's a pretty rare case, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean, if you guys are training for the airlines, you have to be able to work with all different kinds of personalities who have those higher ratings than you. And I've already gone through all the training, so I'm sure that's also
Yeah, absolutely.
along the way. And we are just like crushing these questions.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can actually touch on one thing I should have said for the student progressing timelines.
Okay.
So usually it's blocked out that private pilot will take a year, so 2 semesters. Instrument will take a year, commercial will take a year, and then multi and CFI are split between 2 semesters. Well, you might look at CFI and be like, that's a lot to do in a semester. It is, but in 141 you can actually do one of those other ratings outside of the 141 environment. So, for example, I'm planning on doing my CFI at an accelerated program, part 61, and then transferring that credit to part 141 through some fancy government paperwork, essentially.
Okay, that's cool. I like how they do that.
For Niners 3 Golf 5.
It should be. Is it a second check ride situation? Do you redo a 141 check ride?
No, you do not. So yeah, you basically you get your certification, you come back, you complete the ground school through Lewis, and since you had the ground knowledge of Lewis and completed the 61 check ride, it counts.
That's nice because, like, I know sometimes people come in with, like, their private pilot's license already done. So you already had your private pilot's license before you started. Did you have to fill out any paperwork?
Yeah, so for your private pilot specifically, just because you are getting in their airplanes and they want to be safe with their CFIs, you do complete essentially an oral exam. It's pretty tough. And they also want to make sure these students that are coming in are at what they describe as the Lewis standard. Which sounds haughty, I promise it's not, but it more just means that we're all talking in the same way in the airplane. You don't want a student going up and having a huge miscommunication with an instructor. That can be pretty dangerous. And that 141 environment for somebody who trains 61 can be pretty disruptive at first. So they just want to make sure you're acclimated to that environment before they start the flight training in the instrument, because that's drinking from a fire hose too.
Yeah, because we were talking on the ground earlier and you were talking about like all the different checklists that you go through. And I remember when we were climbing out and I was going through my flows, I was like, so for all these flows, do you have to go through checklists as well? And you say that you have to go through the checklist and also verbally say all the actions you're doing. So that to me is kind of like a little mind-boggling because I just do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, definitely better for the airlines going that way, that direction.
Yeah, it can definitely be weird to get used to, but I will say it's very beneficial to kind of creating a flow of mind, and it really just helps facilitate better communication between the pilots up in the flight deck.
Yeah, the communication and like the crew resource management.
Absolutely.
What's something you wish you knew before starting at a Part 141 school? for?
So going into that 141 environment, something I wasn't necessarily prepared for is aircraft shortage. You know, even though we have a lot of planes and we have these flight block systems, there's a huge demand for flight training right now.
Yeah.
And so we do end up with days you're going in and it's a first come, first serve system. So you have to show up early to try to get that airplane. And, you know, if you have classes interfering, that can become a really frustrating problem.
Sure.
As it's gone, the training has kind of slowed down for a lot of people. The rush into the programs has kind of quelled. And the school's learning to deal with this new influx of students. It's become a lot smoother. It's definitely an issue we run into a lot less. But there were times my freshman year I'd be getting there like 2 or 3 hours early and just sitting waiting at dispatch so you get an airplane.
Yeah.
And that can be pretty demoralizing.
Is that what you recommend for like pilots who are like first starting off at a 141 is to just go to the school, hang out there, make sure that aircraft is available?
Yeah, so, you know, I've talked to a lot of 141 schools. Just unfortunately in today's world, there aren't going to be enough planes for the pilots that want to train. I'd highly recommend talking with older students, figuring out how you can mitigate those issues. You know, maybe don't schedule a class right before. And, you know, when you're stepping, you take that big step back, you'll get the picture. You realize it's probably not the biggest deal to wait an extra 40 minutes on a lesson every now and then.
I mean, you can study while you're sitting there, so.
Exactly. Study. I got really good at weather briefings because, you know, you should absolutely be doing them. And we always say we need to do them. But when you actually have the time then set apart to go sit down, you get more in depth. You start asking more questions. So you can turn something that's kind of an inconvenience into a tool for learning if you learn how to best use that.
Turn those negatives into positives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think plane availability is like aviation training like problem overall, because I know like even if you're like with a flight club, if the plane is down and you're trying to get it in for a check ride, or like you have a check ride coming up and you have to call the DPE to reschedule a check ride because the plane is down, that sucks. And then there's also like weather that's always involved too. So I would say maintenance and weather are like the two stalemates.
Uniform. I'm gonna make you number 2 in my sequence to follow.
The two stalemates in flight training that are like the most annoying to deal with because they're factors that you have zero control over.
Yeah. I'm gonna give you just a box out in here for a little bit,
Yeah,
and I'll bring you
I
back.
would totally agree. I think we've all felt the pain of like maintenance delays or, you know, trying to get up and the clouds won't move for weeks on end. So.
But yeah, at a flight club, there's definitely less students that you have to fight with for it.
If that's okay with you.
So you're usually able to get your hands on a plane.
That's fine with me.
At least like
flying of 130 for now.
Flying 2 times a week is obviously not small.
Vector for final 130 for now, friendly 363.
So you kind of already touched on this a little bit. How is your ground school integrated? And then do you feel supported outside of flying hours for that ground school?
Yeah, so I'll honestly say 3 things for ground school. 1, we have our Part 141 ground school courses. Basically, what that means is I'm going into a classroom setting just like you were in high school, physics or chemistry or English, and I sit down and we have an experienced professor in the front, usually somebody who's flown in the industry, teaching us the concepts. For me, that's been really beneficial. I learn a lot from lectures. I know that's about a 50-50 for some students. The second way is very traditional ground. You sit down with your CFI, sometimes you one-on-one, sometimes in groups of 3 or 4, and you just, you know, you do a ground lesson. They'll write stuff up on the whiteboard maybe, they'll quiz you a little bit, you'll do a mock oral. And then the last way I would say that I didn't expect is you're surrounded by flight students. You know, I made a lot of really good friends, and at a lot of schools, you know, you're friends with the people in your majors, but at an airport, when you're in a training environment, sometimes it can be hard to connect. But when you're all college-age kids in the same program, you know, I meet upperclassmen and I've reached out, or I've been in clubs with other aviation majors, and you can say, hey, this concept's kind of confusing me, or for example, recently I was doing my flight planning, and it's cool because there's a kid right down the hall in my dorm, and I'll just take my papers over, and he's really good with that sort of stuff, so he'll look over it for me and just approve it. That's been a pretty amazing resource to have just on hand.
Yeah, and I'm sure like also sharing like study materials. Like Kate has shared her study materials with me. My friend Taylor has shared her study materials with me. Having that stuff, or like an instructor's like flashcards or something like that, is very beneficial. And then yeah, like bouncing ideas off of each other, because like it's a lot easier to like get your head around a concept if it's a collaborative effort. rather
Absolutely.
than just you sitting down and staring at a paper. So
Yeah.
it sounds like at a Part 141, you actually get a lot more ground
Yeah,
than
there's
any other kind of training.
there's a ton of ground, and you know, for better or worse, it comes with a lot of work, but you get very proficient in concepts. And there's always a staff member in kind of whatever field you're looking for. For example, we have an amazing meteorologist named Professor DeMaio. So you know,
Bio.
yeah, he's
Love
great.
it.
He was on the news as a weatherman, and
Nice.
he loves it. But it's really cool because, you know, usually if you're going to a CFI, they might have about as good an idea as the weather as you. But this guy spent 40 years of a career looking at weather. He can tell you about anything, and he can really break it down in a way I can understand. So I've gone to him many times. Even before my check rides, I've made a habit of just calling him and being like, hey, is this weather going to be all right?
Yeah.
And that's another pretty amazing thing to have, just on that like small airport feel.
Yeah. Love that small airport feel. Would you ever consider switching back to the Part 61 program if life got in the way of scheduling? Like, say your girlfriend gets pregnant.
Yeah. We'll hope not, Mom. That is not happening. Clarity. No, I really enjoy my Part 61 training, and I have nothing against it. However, at this point in time, at my age, I don't think it makes sense to give up my Part 141 progress. However, if something happened and I did have a 5 or 10 year disruption, I don't think I necessarily see myself going back into that 141 environment. It's just very schedule demanding, and I think probably the hardest thing to do would be to balance a job and fly a Part 141 program.
Yeah. It sounds like Part 141 is more geared towards like people who are like going for like the college experience. Well, not your typical college experience, but as close to the college experience as you can get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus like pivot careerists, like they're probably like looking more towards Part 61.
Yeah.
Just because of the flexibility with like their family and scheduling and other jobs on top of that. So
Yeah.
if somebody was choosing between Part 61 and 141, what questions should they ask themselves?
Yeah, so I would say question one is, what do I want to do this for? If you're looking, and you are looking 10 plus years down the line, no matter what, I think I would almost always recommend a Part 141. If you think you see yourself in the aviation industry, I don't think that expanded ground knowledge, that, you know, degree or certificate and reduced ATP are ever going to hurt your progress. But then I would also ask your time demands. We kind of just touched on schedules. If you're somebody who only has 6 or 7 hours a week to dedicate to flying and you're trying to do this on the side, I don't think Part 141 is going to be a great fit for you, even if you do want to transition to one of those airline careers down the road, or cargo, bush flying. It's just, it does take a certain amount of time demand, of effort demand, and, you know, not a lot of pilots get homework. I do. A lot of days that sucks, but
Yeah.
it also does help you keep sharp, and it helps you keep reflecting.
Yeah. And I mean, like, every pilot gets homework, but like, you get like homework along with the syllabus, so you know what you should be working on at any given point in time. Versus Part 61, like, they kind of just say a blanket statement of to a ground school, like sporties or skiing school, so that like you have all the knowledge and you can go get your written done and stuff like that. So I feel like, yeah, there's like a little bit more of rigidity with knowing what to do versus kind of all out in the open for Part 61.
Absolutely.
Another thing that came to mind when I asked this question was, like, you said something about 10 years, so why Part 141 and not military?
Yeah, so for me, I was really concerned about the climate of the world, just geopolitically, was not something I was looking forward to. I didn't necessarily agree with some of the decisions everyone's making, and I didn't like the way that the world was looking. I really would have considered a military career, but I do want a family down the line. I do want to move into the airlines, and I felt that that 4-year commitment at Lewis was a safer bet for me than a 10-year or 8-year commitment to the military.
What's been your favorite lesson or most aha flight so
Tower
far?
and radar service.
Yeah, absolutely. So a really special moment for me, flight lesson wise, was my commercial long cross country. Flying at Lewis in Chicago area. I'm pretty far from home. It's like 4 hours away, so my family doesn't ever get to see me fly. Home airport has a restaurant, so it's a really cool experience to be able to pick up at Lewis, fly down, get a lesson done, stop by, meet my family for lunch, show them the airplanes I fly every day. You know, they give me so much support. I owe so much more than I can ever express to my family. And being able to share a little bit of that moment with them was a really special experience.
Yeah, it's always fun getting to share aviation with anybody who has no experience with being in a cockpit before or anything like that. Because they're so like up close with like everything that's happening. Like when I take friends flying and like they see how like I do like the comms and everything else, they're like, wow, that's so cool. You do so much. And I'm like, it doesn't really feel like that much because we're just sitting here.
Yeah.
What about you guys? Any fun AHA flights?
I wasn't listening, I'm not gonna lie, I'm sorry.
Do you have any?
Oh, I do have one. I do have an AHA flight.
Okay.
So, and this actually might tie into something that a question that you can answer. So, the first time that I was paid to fly, I flew with your dad from Indianapolis Executive Airport
I
to,
know they lost their radar. I'm not sure how their radios are working.
where were we?
But,
We went down to Marco Island, Florida, and we flew for 16 hours. Back and forth in like one day. We were taking this woman and her dog
That was for
in a
basically everybody.
retail
landing
bonanza.
on
I think I remember that.
Yeah.
Electrical
And
over there, so they're
I
trying to figure
actually
out
credit that flight
what's
as like,
going on, everything else
I
seems to
learned
be
so much
working,
on that flight that I would have never learned otherwise, because
issues.
it was my first time down in Florida, so flying around all the thunderstorms, and it was really informative to see her dad, who's gone around those things all the time, just where, you know, what's a safe way to get around those storms versus what's not. So, and now I've taken that and been able to teach my students, you know, how to not take risks that will put them in a bad position, but to be informed and understand where the worst places to be are,
Yeah.
and how to avoid putting yourself in a bad spot. So,
Because ATC sees their radar, but they don't see what we see.
yeah.
So, but like, I think one time when I was flying down in Florida, we got vectored between two suns, and I never would have thought of like asking for a vector between two thunderstorm cells. So I'm kind of glad that they did that. And I did see the pockets too, so it wasn't like a no-go situation. But
Yeah. So that was a question that I was talking to her about earlier, was what do you think, do you feel like there are pitfalls in the 141 world where, you know, maybe you don't receive some of that real world experience that's related to small airplane flying? You know, you're very over prepared to work in an airline environment, which is the mission for the 141 world, and there's nothing wrong with that, but where do you think you see like some shortcomings of 141 programs in that way?
Yeah, so I would definitely say you've touched on probably the biggest one, which is that flying in less than ideal conditions.
3 miles westbound VFR altitude keeps 2,500. I'll give you a base turn here in about 3 miles.
so AHA flight, pitfalls 141,
Flight star 411, turn left direct
weather.
Mario. Traffic will be
which I think we were talking about this a little bit when we were just at Schaumburg Airport. We went to Pilot Beach Cafe. Throwing the B-roll here.
Apparently not good at eating.
The food was good, but we were also talking about like students who were able to complete the program really, really quickly, and they didn't experience all 4 seasons
Yeah.
of the weather.
So, yeah, kind of going off that question from Kate earlier in this, weather is definitely a huge challenge in the 141 environment. You don't always get the opportunity to fly in inclement weather, experience things like routing around storms, flying in really harsh conditions, maybe hard IFR, you know, just off the ground. We're not often shooting real approaches.
Romeo Charlie, flight heading us to
That can come as kind of a disadvantage, for sure, especially for pilots looking to the GA world. I would definitely just urge those students who do
speed fine.
want to enter into the GA world, go find a CFI or CFII at a flying club locally and go up and get some lessons on the bad days. It's going to be fun. It'll be a great experience. And I don't think there's really too much of a pitfall if you're just looking to go from that 141 to that, maybe a CFI gig at the same school and then move on to the airlines. Because by the time you're flying those big planes, those aren't as much of a concern. But I definitely think it can become a dangerous situation if you don't fly in those conditions and then you attempt to go maybe solo through some less than ideal weather. And
Oh yeah, having to deal with like hurricane thunderstorms and all that fun stuff.
yeah,
Icing situations, what would you do in that situation? Like a lot of the things that we work with for check rides are like hypotheticals because we don't always know until it's time to know. But I was going somewhere with this. I lost my train of thought. Dang it. I hate that.
I will jump in and I will say, for 141, training in the Chicago environment has been fascinating. We do get a little more of that real world experience just through being under a Bravo shelf, first of all. Gets you a lot more exposure to large jet traffic. If you've ever tried to talk to a Chicago approach controller, that's a nightmare. Yeah, you think of these poor kids' first IFR lesson instead of like Grissom approach or some rural area you're stuck with Chicago.
And that's just because Chicago is so busy. So
Yeah. No, they're phenomenal at their jobs, but it can be pretty overwhelming to start. And then the lake always makes some fun up while you're flying.
oh yeah, the lake effect causes like a lot of wind.
Yeah.
Which is fun to deal with. What about flying into Class G airports and like picking up IFR clearances on the ground? Is that something that you experience at a Part 141 school?
You get a little bit of exposure. Most of that
November 3 Romeo Charlie, change my frequency.
is because we are trying to avoid flying in that Bravo shelf area. We want to get out of the busy airspace. So we do often get an introduction to it. I would just say that I don't think a lot of kids get to reach a great deal of proficiency with it.
Approach on
That
121.1.
makes sense. All right, we'll do one more question.
511, contact Indy Center
Do
124.52.
you think the 141 versus 61 debate is overhyped?
Southwest
Or do the differences really matter in long term?
132.2.
So when I came into my training, I was definitely a stickler that the differences don't really matter, and that it's very overblown. The more I've flown, the more I've experienced, and the more I talk with people on both sides, I do think I would be lying if I was to straight up look at someone considering the two options and tell them the end result is exactly the same. That being said, I think a good or a great pilot will make the most out of any form of training, and they will ultimately end up at the same place. However, I think it takes knowing yourself. I think students that really don't have much of a structure and kind of just wing it, I think 61 can be dangerous. It provides a little more option to slack off. It can come with some big training slowdowns if like you won't get your written done. And so that 141 environment where they really pressure you into those things could be extremely beneficial to making them into a better pilot. And I would say the same with somebody who's very structured, but maybe doesn't seek the interest to go out and explore. I think an important part of 61 is not just sticking within those regulations like a 141 or sticking to a really strict schedule. It's about going out and experiencing new things and flying through the world as it is, not just on a school schedule.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Very well put.
Anything else you guys want to jump in on?
I have a question. So, obviously you touched on you chose Lewis because of your age, continuing your education after high school. What do you think, like, what are the benefits for you or maybe for someone to have that university atmosphere versus a Part 141 like Lift Academy or United Aviate or ATP, whatever?
Yeah, so I am a huge believer that if you have the time and you are at this point, I would say I wish there was almost two different classifications for that Lift Academy, ATP, other three-letter organizations, 141 flying versus collegiate experience. A lot of those schools, for better or worse, are very much about that pump and dump mindset. They'll get you going, they'll shove you through the program, and then they're going to throw you out on the curb. Lewis, when you're here for 4 years, or any of the other great schools, Michigan, North Dakota, Embry, it's a culture.
Nothing like 4 pilots in a plane.
Seriously. Thank you, Matt, for coming on.
Of course.
Thank you, ladies, for joining us again. I just went through this, so the excitement has kind of died down a little bit. My GoPro shut off on me. But anyways, if you guys would like to jump in on the debate on any of these questions, make sure to comment down below, like this video, subscribe, share it with your other pilot friends, and stay tuned for the next conversation in the cockpit. See ya!